Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba. In today's video we're going to be taking a closer look at the Beuchat VR400 Regulator. So this is their top of the range regulator, great for cold water diving but also temperate waters as well. It's got all of the features that you want on a regulator, from venturi, breathing adjustment, cold water rated, you've got a lightweight braided hose. Let's take a look and see how it arrives on your front doorstep. So this is how it arrives in its own little regulator bag, so you don't have to buy that extra. Doesn't have shoulder straps, but it does have a little carry handle on the top. Double zipper. It actually has little vents at the side, which is a nice little feature. So if you put your regulators in and they're still a little bit wet, it's going to allow it to air dry just a little bit instead of just being a sealed bag. Padded on all sides, just to protect your regulators on the inside, and the front cover, the back isn't, but the front cover is this sort of water resistant material, so it will splash off that, but the bag itself is in no way waterproof. Inside of the bag you get the little case, the cardboard box with the regulators in. We'll take a closer look at that in a second. But whilst we're still on the bag, you have these little retainer straps, the Velcro sections. So if you really wanted to anchor your regulators in place, you can sort of Velcro each part of the hose down so it doesn't move around. And a little Velcro section for documents and bits and bobs in the top. Decent bag. And then onto the regulator itself. So cardboard box, pretty traditional, and then we have our regulator curled up on the inside. QR barcode, so I imagine there's some more information about it if you scan that when it arrives at your home. The regulator, and then you get the obligatory book of words, all of the warranty information in 12 different languages, and an individual control certificate. Otherwise, cardboard box. And then onto the regulators themselves. So the first stage itself, so let's look at that. The first stage is decent size first stage, so a good amount of weight in that, but most of that is going to be in the cold water performance. You want a big chunk of metal to act as a big heat sink, and that's what these fins are doing right here up at the top. So those are acting as a big heat sink, allowing the valve to sort of warm up when the cold gas is running through it. It uses the warmth from the water to actually help warm it up. 4 low pressure ports, 2 low pressure ports, sorry, correction, 4 low pressure ports and 2 high pressure ports. The low pressure ports are angled away from one another. So if you have 2 hoses next to one another, like your octo and your primary, they're not going to be bunching up too much right here. So they kind of angle away from one another. It just makes it a bit more space for them. 2 high pressure ports, and then you get the DIN wheel itself, which has an integrated dust valve to protect from dust and contaminants getting into the inlet, and that's just attached onto the primary hose. The hose itself is a braided hose, so a lot lighter than the traditional rubber hoses, they often have sort of higher burst pressures, but they're quickly becoming sort of industry standard nowadays. The only thing is that whenever you're diving in warmer waters, you try and make sure it doesn't get too close to your neck because it can be scratchy. This one though actually is quite soft feeling it compared to a lot of other braided hoses, but still rubber hoses are still smoother, but they're heavier, so it is a trade-off. Moving on to the second stage itself, the 400. If I just take this sort of hygiene shield off the mouthpiece. So the second stage has a decent style to it. As soon as the gas comes into the second stage, it's met by another heat sink, so more of these fins. There's another valve here when it comes into the second stage, so that's again is helping to prevent freezing, so good in cold waters. Purge button on the front, you've got sort of detailing on the front which is pretty funky, and most of this black section is flexible, so that's your purge button. It does feel like there's something solid underneath it. It's not quite as soft and flexible as some other purge buttons, but it does have a decent amount of sort of give in it, so even if you've got big clunky gloves, you'll be able to find that and use that really easily. The second stage itself is very light, so again good for traveling, but also for colder waters and for longer dives, reducing jaw fatigue because you don't have to bite down quite as hard to hold the second stage in place. When it's nice and light, it just kind of sits in your mouth quite nicely. This has both Venturi and breathing adjustment on it. So the Venturi is this little lever here. So that's interrupting free flows when it's set to the on position. It's redirecting airflow on the inside of the second stage, so it prevents a free flow from forming. But for better airflow when you're just naturally diving, you switch that off. Breathing adjustment makes it a little bit stiffer to breathe from, to actually open that valve when you inhale. But if you prefer a lighter breathe, you can unscrew it, and then it's a lot easier to breathe from. When you dial it all the way in, that's quite good whenever it's out of your mouth because it's less likely to free flow. With that and the Venturi, you're greatly reducing the chances of it free flowing. But then whenever it's in your mouth, Venturi comes off, and then I usually unscrew that just to give you a lighter breathing experience. It's also better for long-term storage if you dial that out as much as possible, because you're kind of relieving as much sort of strain on that sealing surface. Mouthpiece, pretty traditional silicone mouthpiece, nothing overly fancy there. And the exhaust tee is quite nice and compact. You do often see some quite big clunky exhaust tees, but this one is quite nice and compact. So otherwise, yeah, nice, neat, compact little regulator, great for cold waters, but also diving abroad in warmer waters. And that's the Beuchat VR400 Regulator, a good solid all-rounder. I'd be very happy diving with this here in the UK in colder waters, but you can still travel with it abroad. You've got those sort of low pressure ports in 4 different directions. That gives you a decent amount of hose routing options, and it's a good solid, well put together regulator. Beuchat have been building regulators for a long time. They're amongst the first to start building regulators, so I think they know a thing or two. Definitely worth checking out. There's going to be more information on our website, simplyscuba.com. Just click on the link down in the description below so you can check it out and buy it from us. Thank you for watching, and of course, safe diving.